In this video, we are going to have a closer look at the viewer. Okay, right now we have a few read nodes in the node graph, but none of them is displayed in the viewer. And this is because none of them is connected to the viewer. I don't know if you noticed, but every time you create a new Nuke instance, there is always one node already here in the node graph. And it's the viewer. And this viewer needs to be connected to a node to display something. Okay, let's try. Voila. Now we can see the read nodes. Now there is a shortcut for that. I can select the node I'd like to see and press any of the numbered key of my keyboard. For example, the 1. Boom! My node is now connected to my viewer. Now, the viewer can have multiple inputs. For example, let's select this read node and hit the number 2 key. And voila! This is now connected as well. As you can see, we have those multiple inputs in the node. And it's great. I can toggle using the num keys of my keyboard. As you can see, I'm toggling between the different inputs here. And I can have more. I can use all my number keys. For example, I will connect a couple more. This is very useful if you need to compare versions, work on a specific part of a script, and so on. You will quickly find your own habits. For example, me, when I'm working on a shot, I always have the input 3 of my viewer plugged into my final output, and I use the input 1 and 2 to work on specific parts of my comp. You'll understand all that a little bit better when we'll have a more complex comp, in chapter 4 for example. Now let's have a look to the viewer controls. Down here we have the timeline. We can scroll through it. And we have here the different play controls. Play, stop, 1 frame at a time, next keyframe, and jump to the end, or jump to the beginning here. Yeah, all those commands are in both directions. You can use that as well to jump frames. For example, here from 10 to 10, but you can set up any number. I don't know if you noticed, but when we played a part, the frame on the timeline changed color. This means that the frames are now on the cache and can be played real time. Now up there, we can adjust the gain and the gamma, but be careful, this is important. The adjustment is just for the viewer. It doesn't affect your comp. And if you were to output your comp, those changes wouldn't be taken. Okay, let's reset those guys. And to do that easily, just hold down the Ctrl Alt on PC and Command Alt on Mac and click on the slider. This shortcut will always reset a slider parameter in Nuke. And this is true for any slider in the properties bin, for example. So this is a pretty handy thing to remember. Ctrl Alt click on PC and Command Alt click on Mac. Up there, you have the layers. As you can see, we have different layers already. And this is because we are working here with multi-layers EXR files. But I will talk about that in the next chapter, so I won't say more for now. Here, we have our different channels, RGBA and more, because of the multi-layer EXR. Here we have the LUT that Nuke is using to display the images. But don't worry about that for now. We will have a dedicated course talking about that. Here we have a few options. And for now, I'd just like to introduce you to this one, the proxy. This will toggle your read nodes to proxy. This is true if you specify the proxy file for your read node. And a proxy file is usually a lighter version of a file. In our case, it could be, for example, a lower resolution one for the read files. Well, if you don't have proxies specified in your read, then Nuke will simply down-res by half your current file. That will allow you to work much faster. For the rest of the icons, we'll see them a little bit later. Now, here, you can set this menu to wipe And this will allow you to compare two inputs at the same time. With this little gizmo, you can move around and adjust the opacity. Here you can select the input by selecting any of the input connected to your viewer. You can just wipe it, as we are currently doing, or the stack mode, and you have a few fusion modes, but I leave you to discover that on your own. This is useful, for example, to compare versions or to make sure that two layers, for instance, are actually lining up. Alright, this is it for the viewer, just enough to get you comping. In the next clip, we will have a quick overview at the project settings. See you there.